What's going on YouTube? Ryan Alex back from Dopamon again, and today we are doing another fun redraft video, this time of 2005. We've already done 2003 on this channel if you want to check that out. In that video, we each did a top 15 and compared our drafts, but in this one, we were actually able to come to a consensus, and after a couple hours deliberating on the picks, and are able to share them with you now, and we did a top 30, the whole first round of this draft.
It
On
wasn't
your
easy.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. It took us a few hours to agree on a couple things. On the left side of your screen under Alex's webcam will be the actual picks from that draft. And on the right side of your screen under me is our picks on our redraft. And I think, without further ado,
Before that, of course, if you're just, swinging by, clicking on this for some reason, don't forget to leave a like and comment and subscribe down below. It would really mean a lot to us. We got a lot of other dope hockey content. We're just two dope hockey guys.
yeah, and
Yeah,
we're recording this on American Thanksgiving today. So if you're American watching our channel, happy Thanksgiving. And
happy
if
Turkey Day.
you're Canadian, happy Thursday.
Hmm. Yes, and for those of you who are capable of counting, we did skip 2004. We might even skip another year. We'll jump around, and by the end of the series, we'll have done all of them. Don't worry.
We're doing them kind of as we feel.
Yeah. hmm
So
Yeah. Without further ado,
number one, Alex. Duh.
this might be a little bit of a shocker to
Yeah,
people.
this might be controversial,
It's Sidney
but
Crosby.
it's Sidney Crosby. I might have just shown the next pick. It's
Ooh,
Sidney
that's
Crosby.
okay.
Um, as of today's recording, over 1,000 games played, 487 goals, 840 assists for 1,327 points. 2 Art Rosses, 2 Harts, 3 Ted Lindsays, 2 Rocket Richards, 2 Conn Smythes, and 3 Stanley Cups. It's Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, he is the generational talent, of our generation and undisputed number one pick.
All right, the second pick, initially Bobby Ryan, Ottawa Senators legend Bobby Ryan, the Anaheim
I got the
Ducks.
jersey on.
Yep, the Anaheim Ducks select here. A little bit of a jump. Anze Kopitar. A little bit of deliberation here, back and forth whether this or the next guy was going to be two. But Anaheim taking a incredible centerman in Anze Kopitar here, and I'm sure a guy that you would have loved to be an Ottawa Senator.
hmm hmm Of course, Ottawa did not pick great in this draft. A huge fan of Bobby Ryan going second. He had a great time in Anaheim for a few years, but Anze Kopitar in Anaheim, can you imagine him and Getzlaf together?
Oh,
What a franchise duo that would have been. And yeah, there would have been a other option for number two. Would have been we had a number 2, 3 back and forth here. It's a pretty clear pick for number three.
yeah, and just on Anze Kopitar before we move on, 354 goals, 1,017 points in 1,100 games, 2 Selkies, 2 Stanley Cups, and one of the best defensive forwards of his generation. But yeah, number 3, Carolina is going to get Carey Price. Now, we thought about him for 2, but we think Anze Kopitar is a little more valuable to Anaheim specifically. And yeah, there's a little bit
Anaheim
of
had J.S. Jaguar, right? They had their starting goalie at the time. They were about to win a cup with him. They were a good team. They didn't need a number one goaltender. And so Kopitar's an easier pick, though. You could easily have ranked Price just as high.
yeah, absolutely. And often seen as the best goaltender of his generation? Question mark. 2014 Hart, Vezina, Jennings, and Ted Lindsay award winner. Um, national team success, 360 wins, all-time save percentage of 917. Incredible goaltender.
Mhm.
Speaking of incredible goaltenders, this draft has a few of them. And the next one on our list for Minnesota initially selected Benoit Puliot. So they're getting a huge bump here is Jonathan Quick. When people think best goalies of the 2010s, these are the two guys that you think of initially, Price and Jonathan Quick. almost identical wins, like record numbers to Price in his career. 2 William Jennings trophies, 2 Stanley Cups. Has him overpriced there. One of the more consistent goalies in this draft, from 2010 to just a couple years ago when started falling off a little bit for age, but had a great start to this year. And Minnesota would love to have Jonathan Quick,
Oh,
I'm sure.
absolutely. They've had goaltending issues. They've had the carousel. They've gone through it, and they haven't had a solid goaltender. And if they had Quick, they'd still have one. And on Quick and Price, they've faced each other internationally a bunch. It's been a good head-to-head the past 17 years between these two.
Yeah, absolutely. American Canadian rivalry there. We got our third goalie in a row for Montreal. Initially taking Carey Price, so it makes sense that they take another goalie here. And Tuukka Rask. Tuukka Rask, Vezina, Jennings, and a cup. His accolades, his team accolades, would probably have bigger wins numbers, you'd think, Alex, if he played more of a starter's role earlier in his career. Obviously, Tim Thomas was the guy before him that he was kind of 1A, 1B with for a little bit. And, benefited from being one of the better defensive teams in Boston in his career. But as a Leaf fan, I'm still pissed.
Yes, of course, this was the 21st overall pick, Tuukka Rask. He was originally to Toronto, who then traded him away.
All right, who do we have at number 6, Alex? I realized I've been
And number
doing them all.
6, oh yeah, all right. Well, we have Chris Letang.
Chris Letang, another great pick. Originally, he's Gilbert Brûlé here.
Mm-hmm. And I think he really would have fit into Columbus's style. He's got a really strong two-way game, both ends of the ice. He can score, he can defend, and he's been, almost underrated in Pittsburgh. Behind Crosby and Malkin. Sometimes it's even like hard to see Letang, but he's been there. He's been a huge reason that they've won Stanley Cups, and I think that if they could go back, Columbus would redo this one, and they'd get a lot better.
Oh yeah, best defenseman in the draft for sure. 3 Stanley Cups, almost 600 points in 900 games. A little bit of injury history, so he hasn't quite got the games played as other guys in his class, but Chris Letang at his peak.
Doesn't need him.
Doesn't need him. Number 7. Who do we have number 7, Alex? We originally had Jack Skilly for Chicago.
Yeah. Was it? Yeah, it was Jack Skilly for Chicago, and instead we have them selecting Paul Stastny.
Paul Stastny. Quietly having one of the best, he has 763 points in his career and still going. He's third in this class in points and 4th in goals. Doing it very quietly. Like, he's never been the superstar that the guys above him are. And
And I've been guilty of that, underrating him at times, being, he's just, a typical second line center, giving him, kind of underrating him. But, he shows time and time again, he can almost be a point per game guy. He does have that, elite offensive edge as well as, a great two-way game. And as much as, I think his father was a little bit better, but he is pretty darn good himself.
Yeah, the Stastny family has a huge history there, obviously. San Jose initially select Devin Setaguchi, who had a good start with San Jose, but kind of flamed out. Instead, they are going to draft here. They're going to draft TJ Oshie.
Yeah, they wouldn't make the same choice again.
No. TJ Oshie, 617 points, 864 games, 1 cup. Some injury history like Letang, so hasn't had quite as lengthy of a career, but he's still going. He's still going really strong in Washington, obviously. Initially picked 24th in the first.
And on a team with Thornton and Marlowe, I think he would have added insane depth to their forward group. This would have been the right choice for San Jose.
All right, number 9, Ottawa selecting
originally
selecting Brian Lee. Did they select Lee again? Do they? I think so.
You know what? I wouldn't put it past them. They've done some poor drafting, in this one. But if they could do it all over again at this point, I think Ottawa would take Niklas Hjalmarsson. A solid solid defenseman. He's got, Stanley Cup rings, crazy leadership factor, and I think they're, Ottawa having selected Brian Lee, I think they would take, at the time they needed defense. They had the Heatley, Spets, Alfredson line. Yeah, they had their insane top line. They needed somebody, on the defensive end, but they already had a guy like Chris Phillips, who's a real defensive defenseman. So, there's certain guys, pretty high up and for defensemen in this draft that I think they might have gone a little bit overlooked for to pick Hjalmarsson because I feel like he would have really fit what Ottawa needed at the time, and he's still pretty good. Not like he had to reach very far.
Yeah, absolutely. Underrated offensively at the peak of his career. Like I think he had 3 or 4 30-point seasons in a row there
Yeah, he did.
at one point, and obviously yeah, the Cups, one of the best defensive defensemen in this class, has the biggest jump so far out of anybody. He was initially selected in the 4th round, 108th overall, jumps all the way to 9. The Vancouver
Not the biggest jump we have though. We still
not
have a
the
little bit
biggest
of
jump we have. No, not quite. But so far, that's the biggest jump. At number 10, Vancouver initially selected Luc Bourdon. The unfortunate thing with Bourdon is that he never quite got to play in the NHL. He had a sniff there. I think he had 35 games or so with Vancouver, and then tragically passed away before his career could really get started. So it's a little bit of an asterisk on Luc Bourdon there. But they are going to take a defenseman. They're going to take a very successful defenseman in his place, Marc-Edouard Vlasic. Initially taken 35th overall. Over 1,000 games. Again, another defensive defenseman similar to Hjalmarsson. It's very similar numbers, but didn't have quite the team and individual success, obviously, that Hjalmarsson had. Yeah, again, defensive guy.
I feel like it really would fit into Vancouver when I was redoing this one. This is kind of like what I built around them making this pick. Kind of reminds me a little bit like, of Edler, kind of a defenseman that they would have wanted at the time.
Absolutely. All right. Pull this back
LA.
up.
Oh, right. Yes. Don't want to accidentally give that away. Good call.
Pull that
I
back up.
forgot.
So our 11th pick here initially was Anze Kopitar, so they're going to be taking a big L here. Regardless. Not that big of an L, but from Kopitar, yeah, it's an L.
Yes.
11 here, we got Keith Yandle. Their 3rd straight defenseman in a row. Over 1,000 games. Hasn't missed a game since 2009. Somewhere like 939 games in a row or something. It's crazy. 600 points is all offense. But
All of it.
All offense. He has almost no defensive game. Power play specialist. So that's why we have him rated a little further down on the board here than Hjalmarsson and Vlasic. But if solely offensive defenseman, he's probably number 2 behind Letang.
And I feel like they would have really fit the team. They were about to become a good team, and he really would have helped them through like the playoff runs that they inevitably did have. I feel like he would have been a big deal, especially if they had missed out on Kopitar. They'd kind of need a big offensive guy there too.
Absolutely.
Who do we have at number 12, Ryan?
Initially, the Rangers selected Mark Staal. It was a very good career, that man otherwise. And this is our first pick. They will keep Mark Staal. Maybe a little bit of I don't know, of a controversial choice here, but I like the career of Mark Staal, and we're sticking with it. Rangers got it right the first time.
There's a reason why they took him when they did, and he had a good career for him, and why wouldn't you? He was respected by the team, respected by the city. He respected them back, and it was a good pick. And I don't see any reason why I could argue that they wouldn't, given that his career did pan out pretty well. Like he deserves to be ranked up here. We have him ranked just a little bit lower in the teens, but that's no reason not to select him if that's what they needed and thought they wanted, which is what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I said first it's the same. I'm not counting Crosby because that's too obvious.
Yeah, Crosby. Of course.
That's too obvious. Buffalo initially selected Marek Zagrapin, who I do not believe played in the NHL, if I'm remembering correctly. he has no games. But who's Buffalo select here?
We have him selecting James Neal. Big offensive guy. Loves to
Yes.
score.
Yeah, loves to score. We're looking at Buffalo's roster at the time. They had a pretty good team back in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Um, guys like Danny Briere and Chris Drury and these guys were big parts of their team. And if they had a guy like James Neal in a couple years after this, they might have been able to go on a little bit of a run at another point here. And at one point,
Yeah,
James
keep
Neal
that
was
winning
a
streak alive.
yeah. At one point, James Neal was a very good goal scorer. He's not the greatest player anymore. The game's kind of gotten a little bit too fast for his legs, but he had 10 straight 20-goal seasons spread out with Dallas, Pittsburgh, Nashville, and Vegas. So why not? Why not here?
Mm-hmm.
14. I like this pick. Not the initial.
Yeah, I love this pick.
Not the
Yeah, the
initial
initial
Pocky
pick
look.
wasn't great.
Pocky look, not great. This pick I like, and I think it fits really well.
Yeah, we got Patric Hornqvist. And who wouldn't love to see like a Patric Hornqvist playing alongside Ovechkin and Backstrom? How
Yeah.
crazy would that be?
Yeah, Patric Hornqvist, literally the last player in the draft, has gone from the 230th overall pick, the last pick, to 14th. Can you imagine? 832 games in his career, 521 points. Two-time Stanley Cup champion. Tough player, hard worker, got some skill to keep up with guys like Ovi and Backstrom at this time. Good player. Could have been really fun to see him in Washington.
Yeah. Could have had 1.5 times the points if it had worked out this way.
Could have.
Mm-hmm.
The New York Islanders initially selected Ryan O'Mara. We'll select here another good player that I'm a big fan of, Andrew Cogliano. Cogliano once had a great Ironman streak. I think it ended at 830 when he was suspended in 2018, and his streak ended, and it's his 7th all-time Ironman streak. 414 points over those 1,083 games. Very consistent middle six center. Yeah,
I think it just fits.
Yeah, it just fits in New York too.
Yeah, the style of game that they've always had, the one that they even have now, I feel like he would still be playing for the Islanders if they had him. He's that kind of guy. He played so many, games in a row that I could just see it happening. All with one team. If it just fits.
Absolutely. The
Mhm.
Atlanta Thrashers,
The Thrashers.
still in the league at this point. We're picking 16th.
Originally, Bure.
Yep. Who do they pick here? They pick your boy.
My boy, Bobby Ryan. Part of the reason I got the jersey on. He had a really good start to his career. 30 goal seasons with Anaheim. Even with Ottawa, the scoring wasn't as high, but he was on that prolific MacArthur, Turris, Bobby Ryan line. They scored a bunch. They were excellent defensively. He's been, a top line forward for a long part of his career, and I think he's up there. Like with the other title, the forwards that we have on this list, he kind of, obviously dropped off towards the end a lot, but he still had it, and I just have this funny feeling about him in Atlanta. I just think it would be really funny him being there. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's
It's just
definitely a funny team for him to
Mhm.
be with, Bobby Ryan and Atlanta, and then eventually the Winnipeg Jets
Yeah,
in that franchise. Yeah,
he's
great
kind of
start.
a goofy guy, and it's a goofy team too. So it seems like like him and the team just kind of mesh well.
Yeah, injury
That's
history
that was
bumped him down our list
Mhm.
a little bit, but he's not a bad pick. Not for number 2 in this case, but not a bad pick for top 15 of the first round.
Mhm.
Number 17, Phoenix. The Phoenix Coyotes. Not the Arizona Coyotes. The Phoenix Coyotes initially selected Martin Hanzal, who had a decent career. Got injured, but they will step their pick up a little bit here, and they will select the third goalie. to be taken. Ben Bishop.
Fourth.
Fourth. Oh my God, the fourth goalie. This is a very goalie-heavy draft. There's a lot of really good goalies that came out of this draft. We have Ben Bishop down a little further on our list because it took him a little longer to break into the league and didn't have injury history, didn't have the longevity of some of these other guys, but has a career .921 save percentage and a .232 goals against average, 33 shutouts. Once he got in, he was incredible. Three times he was nominated for the Vezina. Like I said, lower on our list because of games played. Nashville originally selected Ryan Parent, the defenseman. We have another defenseman here, Alex.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a shocker that, Nashville picks a D that doesn't pan out, but instead we have them selecting a different D, Matt Niskanen. Got a bit of a silent retirement.
Yeah. Kind of snuck away from the NHL.
It was, I believe he had said just because of COVID and uncertainty, regarding the rules of vaccinations and contact and bubbles. He just said, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to stay at home with my wife, and you got to respect that.
Yep, and almost 1,000 games played, 949, 356 points. Won Stanley Cup with the Washington Capitals. Very consistent two-way guy. Would probably still be playing if not for the pandemic. Detroit initially.
If he had maybe a bit of a longer career, maybe even higher up on the list.
Yeah, exactly too. If he's still playing, he might be higher on the list, but he's done so for his career. Jakob Kindl was Detroit's pick. Here we have them selecting another D, another good D in this draft too. Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson gets the shit on a little bit in this draft class initially because he was picked at third. But had at one point in his career 2 40-point seasons as a defenseman. He's had absolutely no playoff success. He's only played 30 games in his career in the playoffs and never gotten past the first round. Kind of an enigma defensively. Either you kind of love Jack Johnson, you hate him. Analytics community hates him. But
I think he would have fit with Detroit. Given they picked Kindle, they wanted that left D. He's the kind of guy that even if they, analytics guys don't like him, he kind of fit into Detroit anyway.
Yeah, I think would have been a good fit for Detroit. Another good defenseman out of that team. Number 20, Florida Panthers. Initially selected Kent McArdle. We'll pick a guy who was only drops a couple spots.
We actually considered him going to his original team at 17. Martin Hanzal instead goes to Florida at number 20. And, he had a bit of a shortened career, but the career that he did have in the NHL was pretty good. He was a solid, second line kind of center guy. He scored a bunch. Played strong. Injuries slowed him down, but other than that, it was a solid career. And I think that if they could do it over, Florida would they'd go for it and pick and have Martin Hanzal for a decade as a second line center.
Yeah, and shortened his career, obviously injuries, but I really never felt that Martin Hanzal really truly reached his potential. Could have been a very, very good center. He was always on the cusp, and then he just got hurt and got out of the league. But 6'6",
and maybe a team like
centerman.
Florida,
Yeah, maybe a team like Florida maybe has better luck there. Flipping this around.
21, of course.
21. Don't ask who the Leafs picked with their 21st pick because they traded him. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about who they will pick, and we are here to pick another goalie in the
number
21st
5
pick, the 5th goalie in this round, in this first round. Very good for goalies in this year. This guy maybe we ranked a little bit lower, but I feel like the Leafs who needed a goalie at the time. Needed a goalie at the time. They traded Tuukka Rask for Andrew Raycroft. That's how badly they needed a goalie. We have Ondrej Pavelec here. And it would make sense that they take Pavelec because they needed a goalie so bad. And I feel like Pavelec's numbers aren't great. He had 156 wins, 167 losses, 48 ties overtime losses, and a 907 career save percentage. But I feel like that was a result of playing in Atlanta early in his career. Not that Toronto was any better defensively at this era, but I think he would have been a better fit in Toronto than Atlanta at the time. 22, Alex.
22. We have Boston, who originally selected Matt Lashoff, to instead select Chris Russell, who I feel like is a kind of a similar type of defenseman. So, the need that Boston had at the time, I feel like uh, that would have fit. And I feel like Russell kind of fits the team that Boston was in the 2010s, especially the early 2010s. He would have like perfectly fit Boston's style of game, and that's the kind of D they wanted. Instead of, that's the D they wanted out of Lashoff, and Chris Russell would have given it to them.
Yeah, defense first guy. Has lost a step later in his career in Edmonton, but at one point was very good. And it led him to being overpaid in his next contract that
Yeah,
he had with Edmonton. Shot blocker, defensive guy. Feels like a Boston Bruin defenseman.
Mhm.
20, where are we? 3.
23.
The Jersey Devils initially selected Niklas Bergfors, who we considered in the first round because he was very good, but then he went back overseas, never
Yeah.
really cementing himself as an NHL guy. But instead, we have a Devils player or a Red Wings player from their dynasty era that I think would fit really well in New Jersey, and that's Darren Helm. Darren Helm, 759 games in his career, 255 points, won Stanley Cup as a rookie in Detroit. Went on to have a very solid career, bottom 6 guy, 7 20-point seasons. Still playing in Colorado and
Having a good season.
yeah, having a decent season. He's a bottom 6 center. Bottom
Yeah,
6
and
center.
an effective one.
Yeah,
It's not like fighting for his role. He, as like a 13th forward, he's earned his role as like a third line center, and that's it's really respectable for some of these guys. It's been 17 years ago. Like most of these guys have dropped off and retired, so it's hard to be a bottom 6 guy your entire career and like still be on it at the end. You got to respect that for him holding out.
Yeah, absolutely. 24. St. Louis initially selects TJ Oshie. Who do they go with here?
Another bit of a drop, but a guy who's still pretty good and had a great early start of his career, Devin Setoguchi. It's obviously he didn't his career didn't last very long, but with the career that he did have early, he scored so many goals. He just
start.
has to be considered, in the first round just for what he did at the time. And I feel like St. Louis, that he really would have fit as a scorer there. Maybe with Perron on the left, Setoguchi on the right. Like I think that could have been a really good team.
Yeah, absolutely. Edmonton at 25. Initially selects Andrew Cogliano. Good pick, but he's higher in our draft. Have them selecting another Detroit Red Wings from the exact same time. Initially selected 42nd overall. We have Justin Abdelkader. Again, a very similar career to Darren Helm. Won Stanley Cup in his rookie years in Detroit. Broke into the league. Only played 10 games in those playoffs, but still got a ring. And more offensive than Helm, but had less consistency, so bumped them a little bit lower on our list. Number 26, Calgary Flames. Initially selected Pelech here. I don't think that's the same Pelech as currently is playing.
No, it is
Long
not.
Island.
It is not.
Different Pelech. Where are we here? 26. We have them selecting, and this is the second guy who's had a huge jump. First guy was Hornqvist. This is the second 7th round pick, initially made by the Leafs. We have Anton Strahlmann. Strahlmann, a guy, 871 games, 272 points. Was part of 4 good runs at the Stanley Cup, but in his career, but fell short. And he was a very solid 3-4 guy in Tampa at his peak. So.
Yeah, the first half of his career, he scored a lot of points, and the second half not so much. He kind of struggled to stay in, but he was a solid 3-4 guy for a long time, and I redrafting. If Calgary could do it, they'd pick him. They'd want him in that maybe even give him a chance in that Stanley Cup run they lost.
Yep.
Was that 2006?
I can't remember the year.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it would have been a great fit. With Phaneuf or Gear. I think that Strahlmann would have really fit into Calgary's D at the time.
Absolutely. Washington at 27. This is a fun pick.
Because we had them selecting. They also picked at 14. We had them picking Patric Hornqvist, but for the same reasons, we have them picking. It's a little bit off, off the board, but we really liked this guy, Gilliam Laton. He's I felt like his whole career he kind of got widely underrated, and being picked by Montreal. He was kind of hated on. Everybody thought that he's only getting a chance in the roster because he's French Canadian, and because of that, I felt like he kind of like lived with a sort of stigma throughout his whole career, and he never fell off offensively or defensively. He just kind of gave up one day and said, "I'm done playing." So the career he did have, he was fairly productive. He had his chance to be a top six guy, and I feel like with Washington, if you don't have Hornqvist on the right with Ovechkin, you could put Latendresse on the right with Ovechkin. He's a guy who could play, up and down the roster and would really fit on a team like Washington. Maybe Ovi could have gotten a cup sooner if he
Yeah.
was on if Latendresse was there.
Yeah, Guillaume Latendresse obviously was the French savior in Montreal, right? So only played 341 NHL games, but had 147 points. So solid career when he was playing. I remember he did play for Ottawa too.
Last season,
yeah,
I
his
think.
last season was in Ottawa.
Mhm.
But yeah, a little bit of a favorite of the channel. We want to give a shout out to. 28. Dallas Stars. Who do we have there? They initially selected Matt Niskanen. Very good player. This player, a little bit disappointing when you consider he was initially fourth, but this one will be Benoit Puliot. A little bit disappointing, obviously, never really met that potential and eventually just kind of flamed out. Lower on our list because he was always touted as this top six guy with potential and didn't meet that potential, rather than guys like Helm, Setaguchi, Abdelkader, Latendresse who weren't didn't have quite the role to fill out, but played that role very well. Now Helm, he was a bottom six guy. He was always a bottom six guy. He played that position very well. Puliot was a little bit maybe had better numbers, but
Yeah, he struggled to maintain that top six role that he was supposed to be, and then couldn't fit into the bottom six. It was always a struggle to find his identity in the league and bounce around team to team. It's hard, to not be a cusp kind of player, especially when you had such hype being fourth or fifth overall.
Yeah, fourth. But that's why he's a little lower on our list. Philadelphia. This just feels like a Philly pick, doesn't it? Initially, Steve Downey. We are going to have them select Ryan Reeves. Could you imagine Ryan Reeves as a Flyer? A little terrifying.
Yeah, they picked Downey. Downey was a tough guy, himself too, right? Reeves fills the same kind of role they're looking for. It's not, out of the realm of possibility that this is the kind of pick they'd make.
Yeah, and like I said, just feels like a Flyer. Better second half of his career than first half Ryan Reeves. And it's probably the last real enforcer in the NHL. There are some tougher guys that can fight you, but I think he's the last. He's the last real guy is there to knock your head off. And the last pick in the first round, Alex, who do we have?
We have Cody Franson going to Tampa Bay. Tampa originally picked Mahalik. I don't think he played. Maybe
he might have had a sniff. Yeah.
Yeah, might have had a sniff. Didn't play much. Cody Franson instead, who he had a pretty good career for what he did play. It was a little bit shorter, but he scored a bunch.
Yeah.
It was a solid second pairing D that could really fit on Tampa. That crazy scoring threat. Tampa was really good and still is really good for such a long time that Franson could have scored twice as much with them.
Yeah, if he had been given more of an opportunity. Was in Toronto, got traded. and then I've had a few bad seasons in Buffalo, and then never really quite got back into the league. Could have been had a much better career if a little bit different circumstances. But that's it. That is our first round. A couple honorable mentions, guys that just missed our cut. Mason Raymond was very considered. We have Nathan Gerbe, solid career. Alex Stalock just missed being the 6th goalie being taken in this draft. Jared Boll, who is primarily a fighter, agitator kind of player, not a lot of points, but he just missed the cut as well. And just a posthumously nod to Luc Bourdon. Obviously, wasn't able to really have a career, but
we could never know for sure where to pick him, right? Obviously we'd like to honor him with the original 10th overall, but it's tough to say.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, if you agree with our picks, leave a like on the video. If you did not, hit us with a comment. Let us know what you think. Who we missed, if we missed anybody.
Yeah, we definitely did. There's going to be somebody that we're like, maybe them.
Yeah, maybe them, maybe a different order, maybe another player makes sense on a different team. You let us know that, and subscribe to the channel for more dope hockey content coming soon. So much for watching. Peace.